Good afternoon, folks. I'm James Kemper with W.H. Meaner and Associates, joined today by Barbara Baez of White Rhino Recruiting. And we want to thank you for taking time to sit in our online seminar on recruitment process reengineering, your strategy to better hiring and retention. Now, those that have followed our webinars in the past will realize that we have a more technical bent on industry technologies, studies, and improvement processes. But we decided to do this topic 2 weeks ago. You may remember we had Jeff Wolberg of CEO Focus, and Jeff is a consultant and turnaround specialist, and he was talking about best practices and issues that are facing a lot of companies on their recruitment strategies. And what we got back on the feedback of the participants, that for a lot of them, they do have a recruiting process in place at their company, in their departments, but it is primarily it's chaotic. It's not very well maintained, and they're not really sure how things are working and processing. So we decided that we would just spend 35, 40 minutes today, talk to you about the wide variety of strategies that are available above and beyond what you may already be aware. Before that, I just want to put a couple questions for you to ponder. And do you have a recruiting strategy and process for finding top talent? Are you aware of that your company does have an active strategy that they are processing? Is your process measurable with detailed metrics? Any project that you work on in your company, I am sure that you guys have deliverables that team members have to bring forward and metrics tracking how effective those processes are so that they can be updated. But does your recruiting strategy have the same thing? And thirdly, do you know how much it costs to fill a position and how much it costs to not fill in a timely manner? Time is money, but you actually do have a breakdown on what it is costing you in realistic terms and what is actually costing you when it is not getting filled. Now today we are going to talk about the 4 recruiting models: contingent recruiting, priority search, retained search, and recruiting process outsourcing, or RPO. Now I'm pretty sure that for most of you are familiar with the contingent recruiting and the retained search. But the other two, probably not so much, and that's what we're also going to be highlighting on, is the pluses and minuses of all 4 and how they would work out in your recruiting strategy. And as I mentioned, we have joining me today, so you don't have to just hear my voice for the next 40 minutes, but we have Barbara Baez of White Runner Recruiting, and Barbara is going to join me, and she's going to speak on a couple of these strategies, and then we'll finish up with a Q&A at the end. And Barbara's going to take the first 2 on contingent recruiting and priority search. And with that said, I will hand this over to Barbara. Barbara, the floor is yours.
Thank you, James. My name is Barbara Baez. I'm with White Rhino Recruiting. I'm a woman-owned boutique firm specializing in manufacturing placements. We have been in business for about 17 years. We started as an exclusive contingency firm, and we found out that our clients, based on some of their feedback, that they didn't feel that a contingency arrangement would be the best one for them, and we started to discuss some other search models that would work better for their company. Today, we'll be discussing the different search models and the pros and cons of these models. I will be talking to you a little bit about contingency and priority search, and then we'll discuss some new and innovative ways to handle recruitment for your company. I had recently written an article, and I published it. You can find it on LinkedIn, either on my LinkedIn feed, or I'll repost it, and you'll also get it as a handout. The name of the article was The Siren Song of Discount Recruiting. The article was discussing discount recruiting as well as contingency recruiting, and I'd like to talk to you now about the contingent recruiting search model, as this is the most common of the recruiting models, and our clients only pay when a candidate is hired. Unless it's exclusive contingency, usually multiple recruiters would be involved. And it is best for lower level positions or when a candidate quality is not a huge issue. Of course, the downside, as you know, speed is the goal for most clients. We'll get the best of the worst in the talent pool. Now, for contingent search, of course, the advantage is that there is no upfront cost to begin the search. And for most clients, it is a perceived control of project and a perceived advantage of competition amongst recruiters. Basically, they feel if more recruiters work on the position, that the position will somehow be filled more quickly. Some of the disadvantages of contingent search, the reality is that the speed, speed is the goal. Most clients will get the best of the worst in the talent pool, as already mentioned. The reality is the search does not offer candidate exclusivity either. Multiple candidates can be submitted to their competition for the same position in the industry, which means for you that one candidate is being presented to as many as 5 or 6 different other companies, limiting your chance of filling the position. The reality is there's no real partnership between the recruiter and the client company. Another reality is replacement guarantee is typically only 30 days. Another reality is that multiple recruiters greatly reduces the chance of landing needed top level talent. And another reality is that recruiters work on volume and are not knowledgeable enough of your targeted industry. Let's talk a moment about priority search. What is it? The model is more along the lines of retained search than contingent. We offer candidate exclusivity for the role. Upfront payment is at the start of the search with the remainder when the role is filled. We work closer. We have a more close working relationship and partnership with the recruiter and the client company. We do offer a 90-day replacement guarantee in event that the candidate does not work out. Let's talk about the advantages of a priority search. It's a much closer working relationship between the recruiter and the client company. It's a greater partnership. Candidate exclusivity, more detailed and refined screening and testing processes at the front end of the search. A higher quality of candidate is attained, and there's also a flexibility of payment terms and conditions. Some of the disadvantages of priority search is that the upfront cost can be perceived as a disadvantage, particularly for smaller companies that have a limited recruiting budget. Let's talk about why priority search is a good model. Overall, if you have a technical or specialty needs for a role that require higher quality candidates with a more detailed process, this is a very good option. Typically, it's a longer guarantee period. There's also time and performance metrics and reporting on project goals and search parameters. And last, closer working relationship with needs of position and company more closely refined and detailed.
Okay, Barbara, thank you very much for that. And folks, also, those that have signed up, this has been provided as a handout, the entire presentation. We decided to go with verbiage as opposed to pretty pictures so that you can follow along and then afterwards can check these things out for yourself. But Barbara, you had also mentioned that on the priority search that there's flexibility in payments. What, in your experience at working with your clients, have you actually some of the flexible payment schemes that you've actually worked out with your clients?
Depending on the level of difficulty for the position, how long the position's been open, really determines what what amount of money on this flexible model that we're talking about for priority search, what we would expect to receive up front. But it can be anywhere from 10% of the estimated fee to 30% of the estimated fee. And depending on the position, obviously that amount would be different. But to give you an example, If you were looking to fill a $100,000 a year position and the search fee was 25%, that would be a $25,000 fee for the recruiter, and of that, it would be 10 to 30% of that, anywhere ranging from $2,500 to $7,500 upfront.
Okay. And what type of clients have you found to be receptive, more receptive of this model as opposed to a contingent search?
Typically very difficult to fill positions that have been open a long time. So that way, the exclusivity arrangements, one person working on it, and with a guarantee of providing quality candidates in a certain period of time, which gets back to the detailed metrics on time and performance on the search. If there's a high level of urgency, if it's a replacement position, if it's a confidential position, this model would be the better model than a contingency search.
Have you found in your experience that compared to contingent, did it take longer for this position to get filled, or was it quicker? And also, were the satisfaction levels, how were they from the client side as compared between priority and contingent?
Well, the best part for a human resource manager or president of a company is that, they can show that the contractual arrangement between the recruiter and the company is such that there is a time limit and a guarantee of performance. So, for instance, for a tough-to-fill position that's been open for months and months and months, I would offer my client a 30-day project scope and requirements right at the beginning of the position. We'd meet up, we'd talk about it for about an hour on the phone. I'd get a clear picture of what they're looking for, corporate culture, and then we would guarantee to present a specific number of candidates within a 30-day time frame. Usually it's 3 weeks to a month. We give them. So everyone is fully aware of how long it will take from beginning to end, and also when the interview process starts. So we're able to get a buy-in from the hiring decision makers. It looks really good for HR if they can go to a president of a company and say, hey, I expect to have 3 qualified candidates by a certain date that our hiring manager can interview. And for the president, obviously, the quicker for a smaller company that the position is filled, the more benefit they would receive, and the cost to hire is significantly less.
Mm. And interesting, because also for those that are joining us that may not be as familiar with priority search, the name itself, you may have also heard it referred to as blended retained, and that's another name on that. But that's interesting stuff, Barbara. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
And now on the third one is retained search, and I think for a lot of the folks that are listening in on our presentation, they know about contingent, they know about retained, and retained search. This can be it can be a little bit off-putting or a little bit scary, because this is a well-known model, just as contingency, and like priority search, you do have an upfront payment to begin the search. But in addition to that, the payments are traditionally broken out during the length of process in about 3 equal payments. They usually see the upfront to get things started, and that can range, just like with priority, it can be anywhere from 10 to 30%. And then usually within 4 to 6 weeks, there's a second payment. And then with the, depending upon how long you have to work that out, 3 months, 2 months, however you agree to it, with the third and final payment. This search has a high degree of interaction and partnership with client, company, and recruiter. This is one of those where there is a lot of sit down, there is a lot of conversation, working out on a strategy on how best to fill this. Just like with priority, there are detailed metrics on time and performance of search. And I think for anything, you really want to know how it is moving forward. And then you can actually find out why that position was difficult to fill. It could be that it is not being proposed properly. It could be that maybe the salary range is too low, or that there are other things that could be included that are of interest to the top candidates that are either not being properly presented or even mentioned at all. And with this is a very good option for priority needs, confidential searches, and or executive senior management roles. The last thing, a lot of times companies do not want it leaked out or known that they are looking for a new president or a new VP of production, because then also that always generates questions that they want to get that taken care of. Or then, of course, if they're replacing somebody and they need that done quietly and confidentially, retained is a good model for that. Now, the advantages of that is that you do have a much higher level of candidates. When you're doing something on a retained search, is you are working one-on-one with that recruiter, and he gets a much better understanding, not just of the boxes that need to be ticked off, but the type of person that they're looking for and that they're needing, because you need that culture fit as much as you need the competency. So you have that higher degree of interaction between the client and recruiter. They do get more of a symbiotic partnership type of relationship. And as mentioned on the previous slide, is that this is ideal for confidential searches or when time and quality are of the essence. You want somebody's undivided attention, and that is what a retained search will give you, is that you will have that recruiter's undivided attention getting this role filled for you. Now, the disadvantages is, the first one like that, payment schedule and costs, maybe more than smaller companies can accommodate. And everybody gets a little bit, they need something done, they want something done, and it's always a little bit of sticker shock. But that is one of the, what can be a perceived disadvantage on that. But also for smaller companies, that can be a deterrent, and there are other models that can be done. Budgetary issues on recruiting needs may not match actual need. This may not be the right search for you. It may be pushed and promoted as an option, but on the budgetary side, it might not be there. And this is really not ideal for non-critical needs. This is something that a retained search would be employed more for that either very, very hard to find role to fill. Like if you have to have a senior chemical process engineer that also speaks Nepalese, you would naturally have a more of a retained search to find somebody that is detailed, or just like you would have for president, CEO, or a senior executive. But for the non-critical needs, the entry level, things like that, not really so much. Now, the fourth one that we were talking about, and this was one that in our initial communique that we had put out, is something called RPO, or Recruiting Process Outsourcing. And this is probably one of the newer models out there. It's really only been active for about 10 years, gaining a little bit more prominence in the past 5 years. And there can be some misconceptions about what this truly is and what it's not. And RPO, or Recruitment Process Outsourcing, is a partnership between a company with recruiting needs and a company with recruiting services. You got the company needs the positions filled, and the recruiter is the one that can do that for them. But this is one in which the client's company brand is being promoted instead of the recruiter. Because you can go on a lot of the job boards, you can see the jobs that are being promoted, and a lot of times you will see XYZ staffing company with their process engineer need, or XYZ recruitment company with their chemical engineering need. But you don't know who it is that's actually the actual end client on this. And with an RPO, what's going out is the actual company name. And so there is also that company brand promotion. Now, what do RPO services entail? And as you can see, this is a lot of information that is included, and this is something that we had to put in print format just so that you can have something to go back on it. But with what they entail is that you do have some RPO providers that will take on a client's entire recruiting function. In most cases, though, they are going to be providing specific services that are designed to improve what the client is already doing or what they actually need. But here is a listing: candidate research, compliance tracking, reporting and audits, hiring manager training, process mapping, technology consulting, third-party vendor management. There's a lot of different things that you can have the RPO do for you, not just handling all the recruitment, but it can come in and actually set up the systems and processes so that then the company can run this on their own without the company involved. They can do that for them, or they can also outsource even the recruiting side of it, and even working with the hiring manager on proper recruiting, on interviewing techniques, finding suitable candidates and things of this nature. But the RPO, they do assume ownership and design and management of the recruitment process and the responsibility of results. Provider will do more than X and Y for a company, but work with company resources to improve upon recruiting processes and results. Makes it easier for clients to hold providers accountable and to hire the right talent for the company instead of simply keeping positions filled. And this is actually really very important, because one of the things that they will do is, by taking ownership and management of it, this really is where a client can have control over this particular process and this project. And then at the same time, getting a bit guarantee more on the results, instead of just putting somebody in the position hoping they stay for 2 years. Having systems like this put into it and having somebody manage it, run it for you, you will see a much longer longevity issues. Now, what RPO is not, recruitment process outsourcing, is not remote recruiting. It is not a one-size-fits-all solution. And we just really want to make that abundantly clear, because I am sure that a lot of the companies have been getting emails and phone calls from companies that really are outsourcing, as in they are in foreign locales, offering these RPO services. And the RPO is really not something that is far off on the way, that you would contact on Skype or email to provide you just with candidates. So it's a lot more involved than that. That you are outsourcing some recruiting responsibilities, but it isn't a one-off or a way to offload your recruiting problems. And this is more of how you can build and manage a team better. So if you aren't committed to improving your recruiting processes and metrics, then RPO isn't really for you. Now, there are 6 benefits to RPO, and we are going to go through all these 6 benefits because RPO is a newer model out there, and one that services that we do provide, just so you can get a better idea of what you're entailing. And as we have seen in the first 3, a lot of the disadvantages were on costs. So start off with number 1, reduced recruiting costs. And this is one of the top reasons why companies choose an RPO solution. And it's also one of the biggest benefits. There's a lot of the companies, a lot of you guys are spending money not just on headhunters and job boards, but you're also dealing with losing money on high turnover rates. This time is just simply wasted in lengthy hiring processes or outdated or even lack of technology. An RPO provider can reduce recruiting costs by streamlining your process and showing you how to find good candidates better and with less time and money. It's one way when you're able to leverage their expertise and their experience for your benefit. Scalability. It's like I said in a minute, this is not a one-size-fits-all. This thing can be tailored to the needs that you have for that particular moment. Your needs may be project-based or seasonal-based. It really depends on how you're hiring and how your company operates, and that can actually be how it's set up. Your needs also may range from a retention focus to a recruiting focus. Maybe you're having a hard time keeping people and you need to figure out what you have to do better to keep that. And so this means that you can modify as needed, when needed, with little or no disruption. Now, benefit 3 is a consistent and predictable recruit-to-hire process. And this is actually kind of interesting because I'm pretty sure that a lot of folks have not thought of this as a normal project or function in their operation. They put it out there and they hope they can get it filled within a certain time frame. But having systems put into place like this, it does become much more predictable. And on both sides, even for the candidate, people submit and never hear back. And a lot of candidates, they don't like it when they don't know where they're standing in the recruiting process. Are they going to be interviewed? Are they not? Interest? No interest? And the, this problem could also plague companies who have multiple entities or multiple departments, where each one could have their own hiring process when you had that disjointed activity. And the RPO can help get everything together and make the recruit to hire process consistent and predictable for both parties across the entire organization. And there's a wide variety of how that can be done. And it can be as simple or complicated depending upon how the operation is structured now and their particular needs. But this does make it easier to know what's going on, what everyone is doing when recruiting or hiring somebody. And then with this, you have increased candidate quality, because by having that buy-in and that very close relationship, hiring managers know that a great candidate is much more than a combination of experience and education, but also includes personality and previous accomplishments. Hiring managers who are pressed for time to fill or have a ton of candidates to go through may not necessarily take a look at the qualities that determine whether or not the new hire will stick with the position. An RPO solution can get into those qualities while still looking for candidates who have the needed experience and education. And this is actually very critical and important. You always hear about culture fit and things of that nature, and it is very, very true. And you do have to have that emotional intelligence aspect in the process, where you're not just ticking off boxes on a checklist, but finding actually the person that's going to fit better with the team and fit better with the operation than just because they have a better experience or a better education or better references. A lot of times it's the intangibles that play a much bigger role, and that's one of the benefits that you can see in this increased candidate quality. And of course, if you're having these types of solutions coming forward, you're going to have increased hiring manager satisfaction, i.e. they're not going to be the ones saying, we got a process, but it's chaotic, we have no idea what's going on, it's a mess, I'm pulling my hair out. And the hiring managers will have a better way to assess the success of their efforts, so they know what it's doing on the scalability factor and how they can repeat those results. They'll have more support from executives, because they also are going to know how this is going forward. They've got the metrics, they can see what's going on, you can see the process is straightforward, so they're going to have that support. And then they're not going to be so stretched thin and able to do their jobs. Who wants to spend all their time recruiting? You also have a job that you're being paid to do. And something like this can also alleviate a lot of that stress with that help and partnership of an RPO provider. They're going to be much more satisfied with what's accomplished and how candidates are recruited and brought into the company. And benefit 6, and one that probably has never crossed anyone's mind, enhanced employment brand. This is just as important as the commercials that are broadcast over television and print, billboard, thing like this, is that how you recruit and how they're integrated into the company and how they interact actually does more for a company image, because if it's great, people want to work there. And that's what it is. This is essentially the identity of the company as an employer. And when every other aspect of the recruiting process is in place and doing well, the employment brand improves. If your candidate quality improves, that only looks good to other potential candidates for your organization. If they know it's great there, they're going to want to work there. If your hiring managers are satisfied and are working in a consistent recruit to hire process, then people who go through that process will only have good things to say about it and your company as an employer. So overall, RPO will help companies in many ways than just cutting costs or filling positions faster. It can actually help a business become a better place to work. And when you have that your employment brand that is sterling, then it is going to be cheaper for you to recruit, because people are going to want to work there. You're going to be able to have a pick of the crop, so to speak. They're going to stay longer, so then your turnover is much lower, which then means your operating costs are going to be lower as well. So overall, you are going to see a much better, more beneficial process. Now, is RPO for you? Because you have to remember that RPO is much more of a relationship than other outsourcing services. And recruitment process outsourcing is much more than paying somebody else to do it all for you. You need to be committed to boosting your employment brand, finding the best talent possible, instead of just filling positions and simply finding people who are qualified. Now, next steps. After hearing about these 4 different types of strategies that are available to finding that best talent for you, getting retention set forward, each one does have a place in your organization, and that is the next steps is determining what actually would be better for you or of more interest. And with that, Barbara and I, are more than willing to sit down and have a conversation with you, no obligation, on some of these different strategies and how they would fit better into your system. And there is our contact information. Like I said, it is in the handout there. You can reach out to us either by email, phone, or connect with us on LinkedIn. And so with that, if anybody has any questions, you look down, you do have a question box. You can type into that, and we'll get those answered for you right now. And let's see, we do have one on the RPO side. And Barbara, maybe you can answer this one for them on the RPO and your experience working with them. Have you done more RPO work or priority recruiting, and what have you seen been the advantages on RPO for your clients?
Well, a lot of the companies that I work with are engineering consulting firms, and they are very project-driven. And for a priority search, sometimes like we discussed, that works very well if they have only 1 or 2 positions that are mission critical that need to be filled, like for instance a project manager or a senior level engineering role. But the RPO model works better when they need to staff up fairly quickly to fill multiple positions in a short period of time, and that might be individual contributor roles in engineering. And so that model works very well. It's very cost effective when they need to fill multiple positions in a short period of time. So it would really just depend on the size of the company, the scope of the project, whether one model but works better than the other. But typically the RPO model works better when there's more than 3 positions.
Okay, because that follows up also with the next question that we had that Jeff was asking us regarding the slide number 1 on the reduced recruiting costs, and how is it that the RPOs could be cheaper when we're talking about multiple positions as opposed to a priority, which would be or retained, that would just be single. Can you venture an answer on that?
Yes, well, typically with an RPO agreement, the recruiter and the company would decide how many positions need to be filled and the size and scope of the project. And based on that, if we had more than, say, 5 positions, usually that's sort of the place where the cost per hire goes down exponentially because it turns more into a consulting project with multiple fills in a short period of time with a lower recruiting cost rather than the flat fee relationship with contingency or priority, which is much higher. When we're filling multiple positions, the cost per hire goes down because the contractual rate to fill those positions, with multiple positions being exclusively filled by one firm, would mean that we have the ability to reduce the cost to hire, on a consulting project, on an RPO project. And we determine that before we start the project, how many positions, what period of time, and of course, if there's more positions, then our fee structure would be a little bit lower than a contingency relationship where there isn't really any implied commitment.
Mm-hmm. And that's actually something that we have noticed as well, is working with clients that were traditionally contingent, and on the RPO side, is that did find that we were getting positions filled quicker, and it was overall more cost effective for them, not just on the fee side of it, but in the getting it filled much more quicker, because they had the buy-in as well as they had our attention, and then of course their overall cost and getting that position filled quickly and not being open. So that's where we also saw those numbers as well, which can be said as well for a retained or a priority. But like Barbara had mentioned, and that we in that slide, project or even seasonal based is when we saw that. Okay, well, folks, like I said, we are very conscious of time, and looks like we have gone over just a little bit. So if you do have any additional questions, feel free, no obligation. You got our email there. Reach out to Barbara or myself and give back the feedback. And certainly, if you want to comment as well on future topics, we'd be more than happy to talk about that. If there are no more questions, then we will end this session. You will be getting a recording on this as soon as it gets uploaded, and comments as well as are always appreciated. So with that, we will end the presentation for today. Look forward to hearing you soon, and keep a weathered eye. We will be having more webinars and online seminars for you in the very near future. Thank you very much, and we are adjourned.